name is Autumn. I'm 38 years old, and I live in a peaceful town just outside of Seattle. Our house, the home I poured my heart into building with my husband over the past 12 years, should have been the safest haven in the world. Yet that day, it became the place where all my illusions crumbled in an instant. That day was a Wednesday. I walked into my husband's office, as I did every week, to place the freshly laundered clothes on the brown leather chair he always sat in. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, casting a glow on the desk that was always kept so coldly immaculate. And then, I saw it. A pristine white envelope, unsealed, sat squarely on the desk, as if daring me to look at it. I froze, my heart pounding. I hadn't intended to snoop or be nosy, but the strangeness of it, the way it was left so carelessly, right in the middle of a desk usually neat down to the last sheet of paper, kept my eyes locked on it. And then I saw the neatly printed letters on the front. Autumn Carter. Not his handwriting, but soulless letters typed by a distant, foreign. I swallowed hard, my hand trembling slightly as I picked it up. I pulled out the paper inside, my eyes skimming over the words that seemed to blur under the shock washing over me. But then each word, each razor-sharp phrase cut into my heart. Petition for divorce. Equitable division of property. Irreconcilable differences. That cold paper erased all the years we weathered storms together, all the hardships we shared, all those sleepless nights I spent by his side as he worried about work, all the times I held his hand at the hospital when he lost his father, all of it now reduced to a few detached lines, waiting for signatures to end it. But what sent an even deeper chill through me was the note clipped behind the petition. Send to attorney by Friday. Don't let her find out beforehand. I, the wife who stood by him for 12 years, was now just a her, a stranger in the tidy plan of a man who once swore to love me forever. I stood frozen, my eyes glued to the words as if they could burn my hand. I must have stood there for a long time, because the sunlight had faded outside the window. Taking a deep breath, I carefully put everything back as it was, placing the envelope exactly where I'd found it. My hand felt ice cold as it touched the wooden desk. I quietly closed the office door. The soft click echoed like the closing of a chapter I wasn't ready to leave behind. Stepping out into the hallway, I leaned against the wall, listening to the wild thudding of my heart. Part of me wanted to scream, to call him right then and demand answers, but the other part, the part that had been hurt yet tried to stay strong, kept me rooted to the spot. I knew this wasn't the time to confront. This was the time to finally see the truth. In the familiar house, I suddenly felt as if I no longer belonged. And deep inside, a cold flame began to smolder. If this was the game he'd set up, I would not be the pawn quietly discarded as he planned. I drew a long breath as I opened the fridge, my hands still slightly shaky after what I'd just discovered. But I knew I had to stay calm. This wasn't the time for tears or anger to cloud my judgment. I told myself, Autumn, you have to make everything look perfect. Don't let anything show. I took out the ingredients Ryan, my husband, loved most. Fresh chicken, a few sprigs of rosemary I'd picked from the garden, just enough golden potatoes to roast until crisp. I prepared everything with care. Each slice of lemon, each drop of olive oil, as if it were part of a plan I hadn't yet fully formed. The table was set neatly. I placed 2 glasses of his favorite red wine, lit candles to make the space cozy. To anyone looking in, this would seem like just another romantic evening between a loving couple. I heard his car outside, the familiar engine sound echoing as it turned onto the maple-lined drive. My heart pounded, but my smile remained, the one I'd practiced all afternoon. When the door opened, his voice rang out with a naturalness that felt fake to me. I'm home, sweetheart. I turned, keeping my voice as gentle as ever. I've been waiting for you. Go wash up, dinner's ready. He came in, setting his keys and phone on the table by the door, shrugging off his coat with that tired air I now knew was just a mask. I watched every move, every glance. Those eyes that once made me feel safe now only held distance, something he thought I couldn't see. Dinner began in what seemed like normalcy. He complimented the food as if it came from the heart. "This roast chicken smells amazing. Were you planning to surprise me?" I smiled, looking him straight in the eye. "I just felt it's been a while since we had a real dinner together." He nodded, lifting his glass. "I appreciate that, Autumn." But his gaze didn't hold. His eyes kept flicking toward the phone face down on the side table. I didn't need to look to know what made him nervous. And then, just as I expected, the phone screen lit up. Though face down, the light reflected off the table enough for me to catch a glimpse of the name. A.L. My heart clenched, but I didn't let myself falter. I poured him more wine, my voice soft as a breeze. "Have a little more. I'm happy we have this time together tonight." Ryan gave a strained smile, a bit awkward, his eyes flicking to the phone again. "Sorry, work's been distracting me a lot lately." I gave a faint smile but said nothing. Inside I thought, "Work? Is A.L. part of your work too?" In the flickering candlelight I saw the tiny beads of sweat at his temple, though the room wasn't warm. He tried to act at ease, asking me about trivial things, the new neighbors, the flowers in the garden, plans for the weekend. But I knew his mind wasn't really here. I placed a piece of potato on his plate, my gaze as gentle as I could manage. "I hope you enjoy your meal. I want tonight to be just about us with no worries." His gaze searched my face as if trying to figure out whether I knew anything. I kept my gaze clear, without a trace of disturbance. He exhaled as if relieved to believe I was still the naive, trusting wife. We finished dinner and I got up to clear the plates. He picked up his phone, his fingers moving quickly as if trying to hide something. But I had already seen enough, and inside me the plan began to take clearer shape than ever before. That night, after Ryan had fallen into a deep sleep, I sat quietly by the window, watching the streetlight filter through the branches outside the porch. The crisp autumn breeze slipped through the crack in the window, but it wasn't as cold as the emptiness I felt inside. I knew I couldn't keep pretending. It was time to uncover the truth, bare and undeniable. I turned to look at Ryan. He lay there, his breathing steady, his face peaceful as if nothing in the world was worth worrying about. That man had once been my whole world. Now, he was the one I had to secretly investigate inside my own home. I picked up his laptop from the desk and rested it on my lap. The screen displayed the password prompt. My heart raced. I took a chance and typed in our wedding date, 0510. The day I once thought he would cherish forever. The screen lit up. I exhaled quietly. Maybe he didn't think I was clear-headed enough to try that. I started scrolling through folders, emails, documents, and then, like a blade cutting deeper into my pain, I found a series of messages exchanged with the address, allison.lee@brightonmedia.com. The words appeared before me, pouring fuel on the fire that had been smoldering for so long. "I'm counting down the days until we can finally be together. She won't suspect a thing. Autumn always trusts too easily. The divorce will be finalized before Christmas, don't worry." I saw the photos they had sent each other. Photos that, with just one glance, made it clear their relationship had long crossed the line of being just colleagues. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to keep going. I navigated to the document storage. A PDF file appeared with the name, Divorce Draft _Autumn Carter. I opened it. Every line, every word was cold and final. Assets to be divided 50-50, excluding husband's inherited property. Agree not to dispute ownership of the primary residence. Signed before December 10th to finalize paperwork before the holidays. I bit my lip, wondering how the man who once shared everything with me could be this calculating. But it didn't stop there. I kept searching, and then another file caught my eye. Legal Services Contract, Green and Martin LLP. I opened it and saw the contract date, 2 months ago, before I even began to notice him growing distant. While I was worried he was exhausted from work, he had already been planning his perfect exit. I sat silently, the light from the screen casting my reflection on the window glass. I looked like a stranger, or rather, I had just become someone entirely different. Someone who no longer blindly believed in promises. I shut the laptop, carefully putting it back where it belonged. The soft click as it closed sounded like a knock signaling the start of a new chapter, darker, but one that demanded I be stronger. I returned to bed, lying down beside Ryan. He still slept soundly as if there was nothing in the world worth worrying about. I stared at the ceiling, where the dim streetlight painted vague shapes. I had once believed in this home, thought it was built from love and effort. Now, it was just a shell for lies I had never imagined. But from this moment on, I would no longer be the Autumn who waited for him late into the night, or the Autumn who left coffee on his desk every morning. I would be the woman who protected herself, and protected what I deserved. The next morning I sat by the window, the coffee in my hand long cold. The early sunlight shone on the fiery red maple leaves outside, breathtakingly beautiful, but inside I felt only a cold emptiness. I knew I couldn't face this alone. If Ryan had planned so carefully, I needed to prepare my own way out, or rather, a way to reclaim what was mine. That afternoon, when Ryan texted to say he'd be home late because of a sudden meeting, a reason that now sounded like a joke, I drove to the law office I'd found through a referral from an old friend. The office bore the name Diane Morrow, a name that just a few online searches revealed as renowned, sharp, unyielding, and highly skilled in complex divorce cases. Diane greeted me with a firm handshake and eyes that were both piercing and strangely warm. She invited me to sit down and listened as I told her everything, from the envelope on Ryan's desk, the emails, the photos, to the divorce draft and the contract with his lawyer that I had found. He thought you'd quietly sign, lose everything before you could react, Diane concluded, her voice low but steady. But starting today, we're turning this game around. She went through the documents I brought, each piece of paper, each photo, each printed email. She took quick notes, her eyes lighting up when she spotted crucial details I hadn't even noticed. See here, all of his money transfers started right when that affair began. This is clear evidence of financial misconduct. And you still have the bank transaction history for both of you? I printed everything out right here. I pushed the file toward Diane, my voice so calm it surprised even me. Diane smiled, the kind of smile a warrior gives when they've found their opponent's weakness. Perfect. Now we need a financial expert. I'll recommend someone. The next day, I arrived at the office of Mark Turner, a financial advisor with experience handling complex disputes. Mark, in his early 40s, was calm, but had eyes sharp as a blade. He examined every statement, every hidden transfer Ryan had made. The weakness of men like your husband is they're too confident in their cover-up. But he's left a digital trail everywhere, and look at this. The timing of these transfers lines up with the trips he claimed were for work. Not to mention, some amounts weren't reported to the tax authorities. I looked at Mark, my heart pounding. Are you sure? Sure enough that if there were an audit, Ryan would be in serious trouble, Mark confirmed. This will be a weapon not just for your divorce, but one that'll make him think twice before trying to go head-to-head with you. On the way home, I stopped in front of a small psychology clinic. The sign was modest, but inside I found a quiet ally for my mind. Dr. Rachel Keller. I didn't know what I expected when I walked in, but just minutes into our conversation I felt one thing. I needed this place to keep myself grounded. Rachel listened without judgment, without interruption. Then she spoke, her voice gentle. Autumn, men like your husband often build a story in their minds to justify what they're doing. He needs to believe you no longer love him so he can feel his betrayal is justified. I nodded slightly, tears quietly welling in my eyes, not from pain, but because I felt I was beginning to reclaim control. He thinks I'll be weak, but I won't let myself fall apart. Rachel smiled, her eyes filled with encouragement. You're already stronger than he ever imagined, Autumn. After those meetings with Diane, Mark, and Dr. Keller, I returned to my home with a different mindset. I had cried, I had hurt, I had felt despair. But now, every morning I woke up, I put on a new mask, the ideal wife, the woman Ryan still thought he was cleverly manipulating. The warm dinners continued as usual. I asked him about work, about his health, about weekend plans. Each time he said he was busy, I smiled. I understand. I just hope you remember to take care of yourself. A few times, I gently suggested. Ryan, maybe we could try marriage counseling. I think it might help us understand each other better. Or, what do you think about driving to the beach this weekend? It's been so long since we had time just for us. He often looked briefly surprised, then declined with the usual reasons. The project at work is at a critical stage, sweetheart. Counseling, honey, we're fine. Don't worry so much. I nodded, my gaze trusting and gentle, helping him feel even more certain that I was still lost in the illusion he'd created. But behind that smile, step by step, I quietly tightened the net. One evening, when Ryan called to say he'd be home late because of an important client meeting, I took a small device from the drawer, the recorder I had carefully chosen and set up. When he pulled into the garage, I seized the moment while he went upstairs to change and discreetly hid it under the driver's seat, tucked close to the back where he'd never notice. From that day on, whenever he left the house, I waited patiently. And then, as if fate was on my side, within just a few days, I had what I needed. That night, after he went to shower, I went down to the garage to retrieve the device. In the familiar office, I sat at the desk, put in my earbuds, and played the recording, my heartbeat matching the clicks in my ears. At first, it was just the sound of the car, the radio, distant background music. Then Ryan's voice came through, clear, without hesitation. "I'm counting down the days too, Allison. I promise you, once this is over, we'll finally be free. Don't worry, Autumn suspects nothing. She always trusts me completely." I closed my eyes, clenching my fist tight. Those words echoed in my mind like thunder on a freezing winter night. Allison's voice followed, tender but edged with impatience. "I just worry you'll lose your nerve and stall again. You know how long I've waited?" Ryan chuckled softly, a sound I hadn't heard him make for me in months. "I would never let you down. Everything's in motion, just a few more weeks." I removed the earbuds, taking a deep breath. What I had feared was now confirmed beyond doubt. No more feelings. No more guessing. This was the truth, bare and cruel. Just a few days after I listened to the full recording from the car, Ryan handed me a gift that couldn't have been sweeter for my plan. He came home on a Thursday evening, his face a little tense, but his voice still that familiar gentle tone. "Autumn? I have to go to Atlanta for 3 days. The project with the new partner needs me there in person. I know it's sudden, but this is an important opportunity." Atlanta. I inclined my head, a practiced smile on my lips, one he would never doubt. "I understand. Just take care of yourself and don't overwork." He hugged me, kissed my forehead like he always had, and I let him, as if I were still the naive wife in his eyes. But I had seen Allison's birthday calendar. I knew exactly where he planned to go. And it wasn't Atlanta. Early the next morning I stood by the window, watching him pull his suitcase to the car. He still gave me that usual goodbye smile and kiss, unaware that each gesture only made me more determined. When his car disappeared behind the trees, I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and started on the next steps Diane and Mark had outlined. I went through all the bank statements, pay stubs, and tax records for both of us. Every figure, every transaction I noted carefully. Mark was right. Ryan hadn't reported much of the extra income from his private consulting work, and those funds had been transferred into a newly opened account I had suspected. Next, I called the private investigator Diane had recommended earlier. Mr. Leonard, an older man with a calm voice, who had handled more than a few cases people wanted buried. "I need confirmation of my husband's real location for the next 3 days," I said directly. "He claims he's on a business trip in Atlanta, but I have reason to believe that's a lie." Mr. Leonard didn't ask more, only replied simply, "Don't worry, I'll get you the information as soon as possible." That afternoon I prepared a fruit basket and visited Ryan's parents' house. His mother, Margaret, greeted me with a warm smile. "Autumn, what a nice surprise. Come in, dear, I just finished baking." I sat at the dining table, listening as she chatted about family matters, nodding, asking questions here and there. When the conversation touched on the family's lake cabin, I gently added, "I always trust Ryan, so with finances and paperwork, I share everything openly. I believe he does the same." Margaret hesitated briefly, then nodded. "I believe so, Autumn. Ryan loves you. He always tells me you're his greatest support." I smiled, looking her straight in the eyes, planting the smallest seeds of doubt where I needed them. I didn't have to say more. Sometimes silence weighs more than 1,000 words. As I left Margaret's house, my phone vibrated. A message from Leonard. "Not Atlanta. He's currently at Laguna Beach Resort. Doesn't look like he's alone." I pulled over, staring at the message. My heart no longer ached like before. Instead, I felt a strange relief. What I needed was now in my hands. The final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. Now it was just about waiting for the right moment to flip the board Ryan thought he controlled completely. Ryan's secret getaway ended and he came home late on Sunday night. The porch light cast a glow over his face. The face I once thought was the safest place to lean on. But tonight, his eyes avoided mine. His smile was forced, and his steps hesitant as he approached the door. I welcomed him with a gentle smile as always. "You're home. I just warmed up some soup. Have a little to settle your stomach?" He shook his head, hanging his coat on the hook. "I'm too tired. Maybe tomorrow? Sweetheart, we need to talk." I nodded, poured him a glass of water, and sat across from him at the table. My heart raced, but my face stayed as calm as I had practiced all this time. Ryan took a deep breath, unable to look me in the eye. "Autumn, I've thought about this a lot. I think we should end things. I don't want to hurt you anymore. We can handle this peacefully so no one has to suffer. You deserve a fresh start." I looked at him, giving him that same false compassion he'd expected from me all this time. "Ryan, I used to hope we could save us, but are you sure this is what you want?" He took my hand, trying to keep his voice gentle. "I'm sure. I don't want us to keep going when neither of us is happy. I've spoken to a lawyer. It can all be quick and smooth." I pulled my hand back, slowly taking a thick file from the drawer and placing it in front of him. "Ryan, I've prepared too. But not in the way you think." He frowned, opening the file. On top were printed emails between him and Allison, along with photos of them together at Laguna Beach. Next came the bank statements, the shady transfers, and a tax report marked up by Mark, highlighting the unreported income. Last was the draft divorce agreement Diane had prepared, with terms: I keep the house, receive half the assets, gain ownership of the small company we co-founded, and access to the hidden accounts. He looked up, his face growing pale, his lips trembling. You've been spying on me?" I shook my head, my voice steadier than ever. "Not spying, Ryan, protecting myself." He exhaled, trying to regain his composure. "This isn't what you think. I meant to be honest with you. Everything you have here, it's just a misunderstanding." I gently placed my phone on the table. The screen lit up, showing 3 drafted emails addressed to his boss, the tax office, and his parents. "Ryan, I don't need explanations anymore. I just need you to choose. Sign this with these terms and it ends here, or refuse and those 3 emails will be sent within 24 hours. He shot up, the chair toppling behind him, his eyes wide with panic. "Autumn, you can't do this. You'll ruin me." I looked up at him, and for the first time since it all began, my eyes held no trace of softness. "No, Ryan, I gave you the chance to choose. I'm not ruining anyone. You did that to yourself." He stepped closer, his voice breaking. I'm sorry, please don't do this. Just give me a little more time." I smiled, this time a smile that wasn't fake. "You have 24 hours. After that, it won't be your decision anymore." That night, as he sat silently, lost in thought in his office, I stood by the window, looking out at the night. The breeze through the trees felt like it was comforting me, reminding me that at last I was no longer the passive woman in my own story. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the curtains, I woke with a strange sense of relief. Ryan had been waiting for me in the dining room since early. His eyes were red from a sleepless night, his once confident face now tired and lost. On the table was the file I'd given him the night before, signed by him on every page, every section. He pushed it toward me, his voice hoarse. "I signed it, Autumn. I don't want to fight you. I just want this to end without more hurt." I looked at the file, nodded gently, feeling no triumph. No one truly wins in a battle like this. Only fairness needs to be restored. Diane handled the paperwork swiftly and precisely. 3 months later, the court officially approved the divorce agreement. I kept the house we once called our home, half the assets, and full ownership of the small business I had poured my heart into. While Ryan had seen it as a burden when he started his affair, in the first days after the divorce, the house felt strangely quiet. No more familiar footsteps, no more trace of his cologne. Just me and rooms filled with memories. But I wouldn't let myself sink into sadness. I set about transforming everything. I replaced the cold gray paint Ryan once called elegant with soft olive green for the living room, warm pale yellow for the kitchen. I hired someone to repair the wooden fence and planted lavender and wild daisies in the front yard. In the afternoons I pruned, weeded, and arranged small flower pots on the porch. Things I had always wanted to do but Ryan had called a waste of time. With each brush stroke, each turn of the soil, I felt lighter. The house no longer trapped memories. It became proof of the strength of starting over. The business thrived beyond what I'd imagined. I expanded our services, hired 2 enthusiastic young employees. They looked at me with trust, and I truly felt like the captain of my own life. 6 months passed in a busy, peaceful rhythm I had never known before. And then, one early spring afternoon, the doorbell rang. I stepped onto the porch and froze. Ryan. He stood there, hair disheveled, his face stripped of its usual confidence. His eyes as he looked at me were filled with regret and longing. "Can we talk, Autumn?" he asked, his voice lower, heavier. I stayed silent for a few seconds, then nodded, inviting him onto the porch. I no longer feared seeing him. I no longer worried I'd weaken, because I knew I was different now. He glanced around, surprised at the changes, the flower pots on the porch, the fresh paint on the walls, the swing I had added. The house, it looks so different. "It reflects my life now," I answered lightly. Ryan sighed, eyes glistening. "I was wrong, Autumn. I lost the most precious thing I had. I thought there was something better out there, but there wasn't. I regret it. I truly regret it. I hope you'll give me a chance to make it right." I looked at him, no longer angry, no longer in love, just at peace. "Ryan, what's lost can't be reclaimed. I've found the peace I needed. It doesn't lie in patching up a broken relationship. It lies within me." He lowered his head, said nothing more. When he turned to leave, I smiled gently, not out of triumph, but because I knew I had truly stepped into a new chapter. That evening, I sat on the swing, watching the sunset paint the sky with nameless shades. A deep gratitude filled me for what I had been through, for both the pain and the strength it had brought. I understood that betrayal isn't always an end. It can be the door to a new life, where I am in charge, no one else. My story, from a wife pushed into a corner, became a journey of rediscovering myself. I learned to stand tall after betrayal, to face the truth with strength and wisdom, not tears. Now, I live in my own home, with the peace and freedom I once thought lost. I know now that sometimes the deepest wounds open the way for us to take charge of our lives and happiness in our own way, no longer controlled by anyone else. What do you think about Autumn's story and her choice? What would you do in that situation? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful family stories to come.